Hi, peeps.
Hello.
We ended our last episode with Alison frozen, so happily she's moving again for now.
Yeah.
Anyway, see how that goes.
Hello.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I just want you all to know we just had a whole conversation without any freezing. I don't know what happens once we go to record. So this whole being home recording thing. So we were talking, as I said, we were having a whole conversation, and we realized our 100th episode is not that far away. Yeah, it's like a milestone, right?
Yeah.
Along with the milestone of our second anniversary of doing this podcast is coming in 3 weeks or something?
Yeah, July 1st, I believe.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
I think, yeah, July 1st, 2020 will be our second year anniversary. We're so thrilled to. Who would have thought when we started doing this that we'd still be here 2 years later?
It seems like we just started, and then another time it seems like we've been doing it for a long time. So it's like this,
for almost 2 years and 100 episodes.
I know.
And it's kind of funny because when we were posting our most recent episodes and we surpassed 75, I thought, oh, we should have marked that. But no, 100 episodes is better. So here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
We have a little time to our 100th episode. This is 70-something that we're recording right now. Yeah. So here's what we've decided to do, to give our listeners and watchers on YouTube a little time to get to us. For our 100th episode, we are going to be answering listeners' questions related to early childhood education. Or, if you're just curious, why my background changed.
You're curious just about us. We'll answer those questions too.
We'll answer them.
We'll do it.
I'll explain to you why my background suddenly changed.
Yeah. And mine is still the same, guys.
Yeah. She can answer that question. What we'd like you to do is send us questions. When we post this episode, of course, you're welcome to comment on our Facebook page, which is How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast. You can go to our contact form on our website. Our website is howpreschoolteachersdoit.com. Go into the contact form and send us your questions. Please do send us questions. Otherwise, that 100 episode is going to be really, really quiet.
Really short. Yeah. I just asked Cindy questions and the answers I already know because we've known each other for a long time.
That's it. I'll just be like, Alison, why is your background? No, we're going to do. So please spare us those sorts of questions and send us questions. What do you want to know? What do you want to know about children, how children learn, why children behave the way they do, how to help certain children? What do we do with children who are ahead of the expectations for their age, behind the expectations for their age? What do we do as we return from shelter in place? What do we do if the children are having a hard time adjusting? What do we do with separation anxiety? Whatever you want to know, please let us know. That will be our 100th episode.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I know, it's fun. And we're kind of excited about today's episode, too, because it relates to questions. Alison and I have some questions.
Oh, do we?
And what we've decided to do is, I don't know, it's not accurate to call it a series if it's not consecutive, right?
Don't know.
All right, so we're going to do some upcoming episodes. Not in a row.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a row. We don't know. It depends how things progress.
A themed episode? Is that accurate?
All right, but we're not going to do it every episode.
It's not going to be every episode, but
Right. But we're going to periodically put episodes out there that are questions from the reopening vault.
We got questions. Yeah, we got questions.
Nice music.
I know, right?
Yeah. We have some questions about how some things are going to work as childcare and schools are reopening. And if you know how it's working by you, once we ask our question of the episode, please feel free to let us know. Contact us. We'd love to know the different ways people are doing things around the country and around the world.
Yeah.
We have listeners from not just in the United States, so wherever you are, we'd love to know how this is working. Here's today's, look, I have to keep reading it because I can't remember. Here's today's.
What is today's question from the vault?
Today's question from the reopening vault is teacher sick days.
Sick days.
How's that going to work?
How is that going to work? Because pre-COVID, it didn't really work either. Okay, so.
Well, I mean, there are substitutes.
Yes.
But here's the issue. But here's the issue. Allison and I every so often like doing these episodes where we laugh a little more, a little less, I guess.
And I like how we get our facial expressions in these episodes.
On for YouTube, yeah. All right. So, although I'm pretty sure if you're listening right now, you could probably picture our faces. How's that?
Oh, for sure you can.
Sick days. Okay. So here's what happens with COVID-19. If a contact tracer contacts you and says you've been potentially exposed to someone who has tested positive for COVID-19, you need to watch for symptoms, or you have symptoms and you need to self-isolate.
Yeah.
Or maybe you need to self-isolate in, I don't know what the contact tracers are going to tell you.
I think it depends on how much contact you had with this person. Like
if you
were in the same room with this person for over an hour,
you might need
to self-quarantine.
But I know that like if you get tested, you have to self-quarantine, and then once they have the results, if you're positive, I know this from a medical professional, even if you are not having symptoms, if you test positive, you have to quarantine for 14 days to see if symptoms start to emerge. That's a lot of sick days.
That's a lot of sick days.
So how's that working? Are people going to be able to be paid? This was something, my son is not in education, but it's something he brought up. Because he was talking about if you are exposed and you test positive, he's only entitled to 5 sick days where he works.
But then
how they're going to have to rethink that.
How is that his fault?
Right.
Right.
So I think the number of sick days may need to be rethought in some settings. Like, do we just say, my response to him was, I think what employers need to do as a whole now is say, if you can provide me with a doctor's note saying when you can return, we will pay you in the interim. But here's the thing. They're going to have to bring in substitutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can schools afford to pay a substitute and you at home? Especially some of these childcare centers that are already struggling with this whole thing to begin with. Can they do that? Or
are you just out of luck? You tested positive and you're out of luck.
Yeah, but how is that fair too?
I have no idea. Again, these are questions. Today is a questioning episode. So let's say.
We're not guaranteeing that you're going to get any answers here.
No, I have no answer.
We're just asking the questions. Okay.
Our role as people talk in public is to say, what is going to happen? All right. So let's say you test positive. You have to be home for 14 days, whether you're symptomatic or not, according to my doctor.
Yeah.
All right. So I needed to have a very minor medical test. I have been tested. I am clean.
Yay.
But the doctor explained to me that if I were to test positive, that he has to report it to the Department of Health and I would need to be quarantined for 14 days looking for symptoms. And if I test positive, the contact tracers would be in touch with me to find out who I have been in contact with so that they could notify them.
Yeah.
So there's the potential here for quite a bit of absence.
Right. You could
in a time when we can't have floaters, or you shouldn't.
That's the whole thing. Okay, you can't have floaters. And then what if your substitutes are coming from, they're not from within your school, they're from out of your school.
Right.
And they went to multiple other schools because they're just a sub on a list kind of thing, and they just sub at different schools.
Well, an exception would have to be made for them.
Yeah.
But
Are
I
you
think
exposing your children and your staff because this person came from the outside that's not normally in your building? Right?
It's valid. I mean, as a consultant, I'm not going to be visiting schools. It would be, not only aren't they allowed to have visitors, but it would just be personally irresponsible for me to go from setting to setting to setting and potentially carry.
Right. But I
know people will do it, but I think personally, for me and the way I think,
Yeah.
I have decided it would be personally irresponsible, not to mention probably not good for me, but
Well, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Personally irresponsible for me to do work that I could potentially do remotely.
Yeah.
And take my everybody's germs and carry them with me to another place later in the afternoon.
Right, because if I don't know, like at least the child care center new COVID regulations say they can't even move classrooms because they don't want the teachers hopping from room to room to room. Now you're going to have a substitute that's hopping from school to school to school potentially. So like,
here's a related question. I don't know. Are they just sort of hoping that if they keep the same children with the same teacher all day long and they go nowhere and everybody's all isolated in their classes, that adults won't get this? Because these adults, they also have to go to the supermarket and they go out and they socialize now. And people are getting back together, and we've got all the things going on in society that still happen. So even just to say the teachers won't get it, who knows? In Israel, they had to shut schools down again.
Yeah, because they had a big outbreak, right?
They did it too quickly, probably.
They did it too quickly, but I do think that might happen when schools reopen and you went from having your little core family to now you're with, 100 people at school. I think there is going to maybe be a spread, another wave there when schools reopen, just the nature of it, maybe. I don't, or by then maybe we'll be out of the woods. I don't know.
I don't know. And where we live, they're going to be allowing outdoor gatherings of up to 100 people, but you're outdoors, which makes all the difference in this virus too.
Right.
Being indoors in school, if somebody's been exposed, there's a greater risk of spreading it.
Yes.
So again, we're going back to the original question. That's not the question. The original question was,
we should
teacher sick days.
Another one. Yeah.
Teacher sick days. How's that working? How are they affording the substitutes? Are people going to be paid for that 14 days?
You could also get into the cycle of like, okay, so a contact tracer contacted you.
I have a heart attack. Oh no, go ahead. I'm pretty sure.
I would have a heart attack. If
Could
that
you imagine you see on the caller ID, New Jersey contact tracer? I'm going to be like, rah.
I can't even think about that right now. But you could get into this cycle of like, or say you got sick.
Yeah.
You were out sick. Maybe you had a mild case, but then you were home with your family and you spread it to your child. So you were out for 2 to 3 weeks just having the sickness.
Oh, and now your child has
sick,
it.
So you
need more time off.
Yeah. And then it's just like this big cycle. So now, yeah, you were guaranteed pay for 2 weeks, but now your child has it and you're going to be out for another at least 2 weeks, right? Like, and we're not even saying 2 weeks. If you're sick, you might be out for a long time.
This brings to mind another question for another day, which has to do with the people who can't return to work because they have compromised immune systems or
how is that happening? Oh, I'm going to write
that's a question for another day.
How?
All right. If wherever you are, folks, if they have figured out a system for you where if you need to self-isolate or quarantine, whatever you want to call it, or whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
If you need to do that, what is your sick system there? How is your class being covered?
Yeah.
Are you being paid?
Yeah.
What does this do to your accrued sick time if you have that?
Right.
How are they bringing in substitutes? What are the parameters around that? I don't remember seeing anything about substitutes in regulations for childcare. Like any particular, you have to vet them this way. Or
didn't read that either, but you think they would have kind of covered that since it's gonna need to happen. I think they're just kind of hoping for the best there.
What if it's not COVID-19? Let's say you're teaching your class, Alison.
Yeah.
And as typically happens over the course of a year, you get a head cold.
Yeah.
Which then becomes a cough and a sinus infection.
And from what I read, if you have a cough, you can't go to work, period. Because they're afraid that it might be COVID. So they're going to be sending people home much more than they used to. you as a teacher and the children.
Which
so like,
is good.
Which is a good thing.
I
but
think it's
how
good.
are they
Sick people go home. Sick
They
people
should
get
go
out.
home. Get
Right,
out.
get out. Go home. And it should always have been that way. But there needs to be a plan to deal with that, because how many people just get the common cold?
Right. And you're easily able to work with a common cold, you know?
About you though, I get the common cold. I always end up with a sinus infection or bronchitis.
Yes. Or strep throat for me.
There you go.
But the reason why we never took off was because it was sometimes difficult to get substitutes. You know, it's sometimes it's more work to be out than to go to work sick for some people. So like, now that we're going to have this, like, no, if you're sick, you should stay home. Well, then you need to have some sort of plan in place so that people can stay home guilt-free, you know? And
here, a future question also has to do with what happens when there's sickness in the families, but we'll get there. And again, it doesn't have to be COVID-19. We also still have the common cold. We have flu. We have stomach viruses. We have all sorts of things that can happen. And anything schools, like there's so much germ there. You know, this is one of the reasons why I think it's very complex to reopen on a grand scale.
It is. It's way more complicated than I think anybody could imagine. And I think they imagined it pretty complicated. Yeah.
But every time I think about it, or every time I work with a school, there's another layer. Somebody brings up another layer of problem or potential problem. And I don't know what it's teaching. It's got to be teaching us something about our systems. We're going to go back to that episode where you and I talked about they need to be in smaller groups, in pods or something.
Like pods. Yes, I'm all for the pods.
Back to pods. I don't know, it's got to teach us something, because, you know, as many people are yelling, my child needs school, open up school. It's such a complex thing.
Yeah.
All right. So that's our today's question from the reopening vault. Again, is teacher sick days. How's that all working? You can contact us through our website, howpreschoolteachersdoit.com has a contact form. You can also reach us via Facebook message. We have a Facebook page. How Preschool Teachers Do It podcast is the page. Please let us know what systems they've worked out for you. And we would love to take your answers to our questions from the vault and talk about them on a future episode.
We could have an episode of answers from
the vault.
Also,
answers from the hive mind out there.
Yeah. Also, if you have a question that you want us to discuss on a question from the vault episode that maybe we didn't think of, let us know.
I'm so loving this idea, Alison.
I'm so excited.
I know. Every so often, Alison and I strike gold. This is one of them.
It doesn't happen often, but when it does,
we strike gold. So please do let us know what you're thinking. Yeah. And if you're out there like us going, how's that going to work? How's it going to work on my staff? How's it going to work for me? How's it going to work for my kid's school? Can you please just let us know we're not alone in our question? Can you please just contact us and be like, yeah, I was wondering that too.
Sometimes I feel, and I read an article, so I know I'm not alone in this, that I feel like I'm like being gaslighted on like a daily basis, where I'm like, are my questions valid? Like, why am I the only one wearing a mask? Am I the only one?
God.
Okay.
Oh my God.
And sometimes when I have these questions, I'm
what's up with that like solid 3% of people who refuse to wear a mask in public? What?
I don't understand. And then look at me like I'm like, what? Like, I'm in a store, I'm in a building, I'm going to wear a mask. Like, sorry, people, but like, okay, I'm not even sorry about it, because that's what you should be doing. But sometimes when I have questions like this and everybody's like, oh yeah, we should just reopen schools, I'm like, am I going insane here? Because I'm pretty sure it's way more complicated than like, just open the doors and go. You know,
Allison's always so happy when I text her. And I'm like, Alison, how is this going to work? And she's like, I was wondering too. I don't know.
Always. Always. Like, I don't know how anything is working anymore.
So listen, viewers, faithful viewers and listeners, our preschool peeps who we are so grateful for, you now have two tasks. One, send us questions you would love for us to consider on our 100th episode.
Okay. Yeah.
Two, send us how they're solving this sick person thing. That's it. Also, here's your third task. Please give us 5 stars. 5.
Because we're that awesome. Yeah.
And share our podcast because we would like it to keep spreading. We get so many listens now, but we would really like it to keep spreading. And we like to watch our graph of listens going like way up, higher.
That's the one graph I like seeing go up.
Yes. Not so much the pandemic
Not so
graph.
much the pandemic graph. We want
That
to
needs
go
to go
down.
But our listener graph can go up.
Yeah.
Okay, preschool peeps. And thank you to all of you who have been consistently letting us know that this podcast makes a difference in your lives. Yay. We will catch you next time on How Preschool Teachers Do It.
Bye, peeps.
Even though we obviously don't know how they do it. Bye.